Hi yogis, it's Jess Trudeau again here today, coming to you from a lovely day in sunny Northern California. I want to offer you another practice this afternoon that specifically focuses on how to establish a home practice. There's so many wonderful offerings online and even more every day, and I encourage you to support those people. It's also nice to utilize this time while we're home and we're being a little bit more introverted to really take the time to establish that ritual and routine that is a little more intuitive for yourself and start to use some of the blueprints that are offered out there and then be able to drop in and to investigate what's happening in your own body. When we practice on our own, we are able to listen a little bit more to what our body specifically needs, what we're going through, and how to adjust so that we can kind of start to align with the mental qualities of coming back into alignment, and only we know that. So today I'd like to offer for you today just kind of a basic class that you can use again as a blueprint to then later add your own layers onto. So it's kind of a simple structure. We'll start and do just a few shapes on the ground. We'll do some basic sun salutations, just a few standing postures, and then we'll cool down again. So again, it's just a nice simple format that you can then add on a little bit later. And if you stick with this just basic structure and come to it maybe for a few days in a row, it might start to feel a little more intuitive to you. And then you can take your time, slow it down, add a little bit of this, add a little bit of that. Now, one way that I really love to establish my home practice is to just get on my mat, close my eyes, and roll around a little bit. And you'll start to feel and notice what does my body need? How is it feeling intuitively moving right now? And you kind of do a little movement off to the side here. Oh yeah, that feels good. Over here, this feels good. So if we can kind of get away from the idea that the shapes need to look like anything. You know, a lot of times I get asked the question, is this right? Is this correct? Is this wrong? And there's no wrong way when we come to yoga. It's exploring the body. Yes, there's a few alignment strategies. Usually if you set up the foundation strong, then the rest of the body will come into alignment afterwards. So, shall we get started? Today I have 2 blocks with me, but if you don't have blocks at home, a nice tall water bottle is a good prop instead, or some books. And those are nice for postures like half moon if you do it later, or triangle pose, but you can also just rest a hand on the thigh in triangle pose and not go further into half moon. So let's get it started. So we'll start in our seat today. You can draw the flesh away from the sit bones, get grounded. Let the backs of the hands rest on the thighs, palms open to the sky, symbolizing your body's ready to receive your practice today. Taking a big full breath in, lifting up through the sternum, and then exhale, first breath out the mouth. Good, and then inhale, feel extension out through the crown of the head, shoulder blades roll back, and feel the navel hug in. So feeling that containment within, that structure. And then allow the breath to just flow with ease here. Full long inhales, long steady exhales. Just coming into what we call E-RYT, equal part breath, allowing you to ground, to drop in, and to come into your body and to come into presence. This can be the most crucial part of our practice. As you exhale, releasing any thoughts, releasing any tension from your body. As you breathing in possibility, breathing in openness, breathing in spaciousness. Exhale, releasing. Allow any thoughts to leave the room, to leave your mat, so that you can come and just focus on solely the breath, the beauty, the purity of the breath, and allow the movements to stem from the breath. Take 3 or 4 more breaths in and out here together. Full breath in, full, long, even breath out. Notice how the body naturally rises on the inhale and extends, and on the exhale grounds down and hugs in and contracts. A few more breaths. One more. From here, taking the hands face down on the thighs. The eyes might open or stay closed. We'll just take some big circles around in one direction, warming up the spine. And then around to the other direction. And then coming back through center. Big breath in, extend your hands up to the sky. Drop the left hand down, arc over to the side. Feeling the right sit bone and hip root down into the earth. Feel the top ribs inflate, bottom ribs wrap underneath you. And then inhale, breathe it back up. Drop it over to the other side. Feeling your left hip now root down to the floor. Soft through the bottom shoulder. Feel the stretch all the way in the top side body. And then inhale, lift back up. We'll cross our shins, come on to hands and knees. Now again, if you start to establish this practice later on, when you step away from the video, you might make the practice a little bit longer. You might find areas that you want to hang out in and investigate a little bit deeper. So from here, we'll come into cat-cow shape, hands right underneath the shoulders, knees under hips. Inhale to drop the belly and stretch through the ribs. And exhale to press the hands into the floor, round the upper back and drop the head. And take a few breaths like that. Notice the natural inflation of the lungs as you expand and stretch through the intercostal muscles between the ribs. And then exhale, middle back to the sky, let the head release. And a few more breaths like that. Feeling this natural flexion and extension of the spine all the way through the cervical spine and the neck. And take one more round. Coming back to a neutral tabletop, settle your way back into a child's pose. Hips hit the heels. You can always take a block at the sternum, reach the hands forward, melt the forehead to the floor. Knees can be together or wide, whatever feels best for your body. Lift the gaze, pick up your hips. We'll shift forward and come onto our belly, lowering down. Hands alongside the side ribs. And coming up into a baby cobra. Peel the forehead off the floor, elbows hug in. Feel the pubic bone root down into the earth and the back of the neck be long. Strengthening the muscles in the low back. And then release back down. Inhale, press the hands into the floor. Come back into your tabletop. Good. Come back to the center of your mat if you've navigated anywhere else. Hands right underneath the shoulders again. Grip the hands into the floor. And either stay here and alternate one leg and then the other, or you can come into a plank pose. Feel the navel hug in. Fill up the upper back and bring the collarbones forward. Back of the neck long. You can stay here a little bit longer, or press your way right back into downward facing dog. Try and keep about this distance. You might pedal the feet here. You might inhale high up onto the toes and bend the knees, melting the ribs towards the thighs. Let the head relax. And then slowly straighten the legs back out. It's okay to let the heels come off the floor. Give the backs of the legs some room. Reach the sit bones up towards the sky. Maybe pedal one foot continually and then the other. Press the hands evenly into the floor, getting longer through the sides of the body. And start to pedal your feet and walk your way all the way up to the front of the mat. We'll inhale for a half lift. Hands can come to shins or to blocks. And then exhale to forward fold. Let the head shake a little bit. And inhale back, half lift. You can walk the hands all the way up the thighs, reach the hands up to the sky. Feet hip width apart, directly down from the hips, coming into a chair pose. And see that the toes are reaching towards the front. And then from here we'll press and lift. Exhale, dive forward. So here we'll move into our sun salutations. Inhale, half lift. Bend the knees, plant the hands. Right leg back, left into a plank pose. Shift forward, lower your knees to the floor, belly to the floor, and come into that baby cobra shape. Press the hands into the earth, downward facing dog. Reach the right leg up to the sky. Hug your knee into your chest and step it between the hands. Creating space, rounding through the spine, just like you did in your cat spine. Look forward. Come into a forward fold from your half lift. Press into the floor, rise all the way up. Hands to the heart. Move into the other side, breathe the arms up. And then dive forward. Inhale, half lift. Left leg back, right into plank. Shifting forward. Some of you here might come into chaturanga or lower the knees right back to the floor. Elbows hug. Breathe into baby cobra or upward facing dog. Straightening the legs or straightening the arms, lifting the legs. And then back to downward facing dog. Bent knees or straight legs. Breathe here as long as you'd like. Left leg to the sky. Step it between the hands. And right leg forward, folding in. Press into the floor, rise all the way up. And hands to the heart. We'll come back into our chair pose, give ourselves a little reset here before we come into some standing shapes. Nice. And press into the earth, come all the way up. Exhale, dive forward. Inhale, half lift. Step any leg back into downward facing dog. Shake out the head. Relax the jaw. Step into the moment. From here, reach your right leg to the sky and step it between your hands. From your low lunge, drop your back heel. We'll come into warrior two. Hips open to the side. So here's that foundational setup. Make sure the front toes are reaching to the front of the mat and the knee starts to track over the heel. Check out the top of the thigh. Make sure that it's about parallel to the ceiling as well. You can straighten the leg a little bit more. Just make sure that the knee is not dropping in or rolling out. Equal pressure on all four corners of the front foot. Arms straight and strong, like you're reaching steady in both directions. You might gaze out over the front fingertips. Full steady breathing. Backhand down the back leg, reverse your warrior. And then come forward into an extended side angle. Elbow hits the thigh. Create space between the bottom ear and shoulder. And keep length in the bottom ribs. Feel the back foot ground into the floor, especially the big toe, so you don't roll to the outer edge of the back foot. From here we'll come into triangle pose, straightening the bottom leg. Here's where you can take your hand to the top thigh for a prop, or you can reach down for your block. I like to take it on the outside of the foot. You might take it to the inside. Come right up onto finger pads so you can keep spaciousness in the shape here. Good, and then like a friend is lifting you up, lift all the way up, rebend your knee. We'll tip back again, reverse. Take the hands to the floor. And you might take a vinyasa flow through, or you might step back to downward dog. So vinyasa shifting forward, chaturanga or knees down, up dog or baby cobra. You Either bent knees or straight legs, downward dog. Nice. We'll have a steady breath in, steady breath out, staying right in the moment. Relax your head, relax your neck. And we'll breathe the left leg up to the sky. Stepping it between the hands. Warrior two as you drop the back heel. And again, check out the foundation of the front toes, and that'll allow you to set up the foundation of the knee. Reach out through the fingertips. Good. Let the tail be long. Let the heart rise. But the navel hug. Gaze out over the fingers. Let the mind be empty. Can you find the balance between steadiness and ease? Stiram and Sukham. We call it in yoga, steadiness and ease. We'll reverse the warrior, backhand down the back leg. Keep the length through this front side rib and come forward into extended side angle. Good. Anything you'd like with the top arm, it can reach to the sky. It can point towards the front of the room. Give the bottom shoulder a little bit of space. Feel the top hip open. From here, starting to straighten the bottom leg, triangle pose. Good. See if you can keep spaciousness here. And again, you might find a block underneath the fingertips. You can take your hand on the thigh or let it rest down, pressing the back of the hand into the thigh, using that as a lever to lift and extend up. Anywhere with the gaze in any of these shapes that feels right for you. And we'll lift back up, rebend your knee, warrior two. Reverse your warrior. And take your hands down to the floor. Either take a flow through, you can always drop to your knees and come into child's pose. Or come right back into downward dog. And we'll all meet back in downward facing dog. Nice. So we'll take another round through here. From downward dog, step the right foot forward. Open up warrior two. We'll add on a little bit here. So you start from that structure. Tip back, reverse your warrior. This time straighten your front leg, come out into triangle pose. Reaching up with the top fingertips. Feel the strength in your foundation and feel the breath continue to flow with ease. Now you can either stay here in this triangle, keep a little bend through the front knee, or lift the kneecap up, engaging the thigh, especially if you have the tendency to hyperextend. A few ways you can add on here is to reach one hand to the front, one hand to the back, or slowly move that top arm like a lever to feel the top side obliques work a little bit more. And again, gentle bend through the front knee, making sure that you're not locking into your kneecap, into your knee joint. And from here, option to stay in your triangle pose or come into half moon pose, Ardha Chandrasana. We'll bend the front knee, find your block. I'm going to scoot back just a little bit and lift the back leg up to the sky. So it's kind of like an inverted triangle pose. See if you can feel just as easeful here in this shape as you did in triangle. Breathing helps. Press through the ball of the top foot, knowing that you can be steady and strong through changing times, through challenges. And whenever you're ready to come out, rebend the top knee, send the top leg, or rebend the bottom knee, send the top leg back. Come back into extended side angle. And we'll slide the hands down to the floor. And again, take that flow through or pressing back, downward dog. we'll move right into the other side, stepping the left foot between the hands. Open up warrior two. Feel steady, feel strong. Just in this moment, just with the breath. Reverse. Straightening the front leg, triangle pose. So in these hip opening shapes so far, I'll heel to arch. You can even take a look down and make sure that the foundation is strong. You might lift up and add a little bit. Feel the navel draw in, top ribs engaged, side obliques engaged. You might add on a little bit. Keep the breath steady. And either staying in triangle pose or slowly coming into half moon. The top hand might start on the hip and then slowly expand up. Some of you, for a little more challenge, might take your gaze away from the floor and then straight forward or up to the sky. Press through the ball of the top foot and keep the breath even, long, extended, easeful. And we'll slowly rebend, extended side angle. Sliding the hands down to the floor, and another flow through here, or drop to the knees, come into child's pose, and we'll all meet back in down dog. And from downward facing dog, starting to walk your way up to the front of the mat. Inhale for a half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Bend the knees as much as you'd like here. You might grab onto the elbows. And take a half lift and rise all the way up. And hands to the heart. So from here we'll step into a pyramid pose. So I've got my blocks out in front of me here. I'll start at the front of my mat so the hips can stay square towards the front. And I'll step the left leg back. Back toes angle in quite a bit here. So I'll show you from this orientation as well. Hips are square towards the front. Then I start to straighten the front leg. And then hinge from the pelvis, move from the pelvis and tip forward. Okay, so I like to use blocks for this one. So it's a shorter stance generally than our warrior one. Feet hip width, back toes really angled in there. So you might stay up high and with the hands on the hips you can feel what the pelvis is doing. If the left hip is pointing up, see if you can draw the right hip crease back. And again, that soft bend through the front knee or lifting of the kneecap up to help engage the thigh. You might start to release the hands down, give a little bend to find the blocks, and then come fingertips onto the blocks. As you inhale, feel the right hip crease reach back even more and press the big toe into the floor. As you soften, might you hinge from the pelvis, like the pelvis itself is tipping down, and soften from the navel, low rib, and then maybe soothing and easing down just a little bit more. Big stretch through the front leg, so only come down as far as it feels good. Remember that you are the only judge for what feels good for you, and there's no way that the shape is supposed to look. You might soften the head down if that feels nice. Soften on your exhale. Feel a gentle extension through the spine on your inhale. And press the hands into the blocks and walk to the fingertips. Give a little bend through the front knee to take yourself up, hands to the hips, and step your left foot forward. And with the hips still hip width, right leg steps back, coming into our pyramid pose on the other side. Hands starting at the hips to navigate what's happening in the pelvis, And then start to hinge forward. Maybe take a few breaths here. And to find the blocks, give the knee a little bend. Find the fingertips at first. Hands right underneath the shoulders. Back toes really angle all the way in there. Feel the left hip crease reach up. And then notice how that might let the left toe come off the floor. See if you can spiral it back down and press it into the earth. With the fingertips, it's almost like they're dragging the floor back to create some length and extension through the spine. Gaze is generally down towards the floor to keep the back of the neck long. And see if you might stay and breathe and let the breath be an anchor into the moment. Let the head be heavy. Remind yourself that the practice is here to navigate you back home to yourself, to bring you peace, to bring you stillness, health and healing, not just in the body, but in the mind. Slowly rebend the knee, walk your way up, and step your way to the front. You can place your blocks off to the side, come into the center of your mat, and we'll come into a tree pose. We'll do a little bit of balancing now. Help us to get steady and a little more focused. Shift your weight into your right foot. Now you might start with your toes on the floor as you externally rotate the knee. You could always prop your foot up on a block to help get it a little higher, the calf, or take it above the knee, anywhere above or below the knee, to come into this tree pose. And the hands can stay on the hips or they can start to open out. Open out wide, maybe hands to the sky or to the heart. So find that balance between being steady, feeling strong, like you could sustain, but also find the benefit in giving yourself a little challenge. Knowing that it is those challenges that make us stronger. And I think we can relate to that especially now. So as you move the hands, as you create a little bit of dis-ease, you start to feel the ankles working and growing and getting stronger. So see if you can find a sense of play here. And then we'll slowly release that foot. Shift your weight into the left foot, spreading all the toes. Start to externally rotate the hip. And then start to peel the toes away from the floor. They might start right here, go up to the calf, anywhere above or below the knee. And to help keep the heel there, we press it into the space that it's connecting to help strengthen and anchor into that space. And then wherever the hands would like to go. Imagine that as the foot roots into the floor and the heel roots into the inner thigh, everything else is ascending up, getting longer, getting vibrant. Hands might start to soar up. See if you can find a space where you're not afraid to fall, knowing that if you came out, you could just come back in again. It's in the falling that we kind of get ourselves some fuller wings. Drop down, feet hip width. Take yourself back into a chair pose. And inhale, lift up. Exhale, dive forward. The feet might come a little bit wider here as you hold on to the elbows, relax the head. Drip the hands down, inhale, half lift. Bend the knees, you can lift the heels up. You might take your way into a crow pose here, or you can come down onto your seat. In crow pose, hands are hip width apart, toes start together. Another nice option here is malasana, with the heels on the floor, hands pressing together. You can sit on blocks if that feels a little bit too much right now. Or for your crow pose, you can come forward, let the forehead rest on a block as the knees come behind the elbows. Let the toes come up. Or you can place 2 blocks underneath the shoulders as a little anchor. And the shoulders come down. Or you can slowly work on gripping the fingertips into the floor, rounding through the spine, shifting forward, drawing the toes up. Slowly back down. And from here, coming down onto your seat, you might circle the wrists out a little bit. Hands behind the knees. You can take the flesh away from the sit bones slightly. We'll come into Navasana boat pose. Slowly tipping back. Shins come parallel to the floor. Hands can release or continue to hold behind. Now we can stay with this right here. You're welcome to straighten one leg or both. Take a big breath in. You might exhale and lower down. Inhale, lift back up. Only do as many as it feels good. You can always choose to tap the toes on the floor instead. Let the feet come to the floor. Give yourself a big squeeze here. Drop the forehead down, relaxing the head, and coming back to the moment. As you lift the head up, take your feet hip width apart, lower down onto your back. We'll come into a bridge pose. Now have your block handy just in case you'd like to take a more restorative version. With the feet hip width apart and the heels walked in, you might take your block underneath your hips and let the low back rest on the block. Okay, other option would be with the feet hip width apart. Press the feet into the floor and slowly lift the pelvis, the middle back, and the upper back. Pressing the feet into the floor, might walk the shoulders underneath a little bit more. Keep your gaze to the sky, chin open to the sky. Think about opening the heart towards the back of the room and back of your mat. Continuing to keep the breath long. And then slowly lower down. Gentle back bend here so we can hug the knees into the chest. As a nice counter pose. And take the feet to the floor. And we'll come into a twist. Dropping the knees over to the right. Cactus the arms or open them. Might gaze over the left shoulder. And back through center. Taking the knees now over to the left. You can always place a block underneath or in between the knees or a blanket to lift the knees away from the floor. Okay, and then back through center. Neutralize the spine. We'll come up onto our seat, so you might take a little rock and roll to get there. Or come off to the side and come onto your seat, extending the legs out long. Draw the flesh away from the sit bones. You might use your blocks. The knees can stay bent. You can place a blanket underneath the knees. And we'll just take a soft forward fold here. So inhale, lifting the heart, lengthening through the side ribs, sides of the body. And then exhale, start to hinge and come forward. You might stay very high here, flex the toes, draw the baby toes back towards you. Or for a little less intensity, you might soften a little bit more. You can take the blocks out a little bit longer, give the hands something to rest on, something to root into. You can drag the hands back and lengthen through the sides of the body a little bit more. You might even take a little more restorative version, taking the blocks on top of the shins or the thighs, resting the forehead, or a bolster. It can also come in between. And slowly lifting up. Again, in your home practice, you might stay here a little bit longer. And from here, we'll bend the knees, take the feet to the floor again. Take the soles of the feet together for one more shape here, Baddha Konasana. Let the knees drop down. If you're at home, you might place blankets or blocks underneath the knees to lift them up. Give your thighs and hips a little support. You're welcome to stay here or hinge and come forward. And stay as long as you'd like before rolling back up. And from here, peeling the knees together, releasing down onto your back. Now you might end in a seated meditation or in Shavasana. Just give yourself a little bit of time to rest and relax here. Hands drip down off to the sides, toes drip open. You can place blocks or blankets underneath the knees. Slowly scan the body, releasing every inch of the body, completely and fully. It's really important to take these slower moments to absorb the practice, to let it settle into our body, let it settle into our bones, so that it becomes a part of us. Take a big breath in. On your exhale, scan the whole body in a big wave, releasing every inch of your body. And again, as you start to establish this practice as a home practice for yourself, you might stay a little bit longer. I encourage you to stay longer in your Shavasana. But what I hope is that this class here today can help you start to establish some sort of blueprint, some sort of framework that you can use as a springboard to start a home practice for yourself, to get on your mat and to really be with yourself in these quiet moments and see what manifests, see what lessons you can teach yourself. It's really a beautiful thing to have a home practice, also to be in community, but in order to kind of see the benefits and some of the blessings that this time away from people might offer us is to drop into that intuitive nature. And sometimes we need to be forced into dropping into that intuition, into that solitary environment. So here we are, and I hope that these tips can help you to navigate these changing times and to really set up something beautiful for yourself that can be sustainable for years to come and help you to continue to come back home to yourself. And I hope to see you on the mat all together again very soon. Until then, the light in me bows to the light in you, which means namaste. Namaste, everyone.